we invite you to join the following session. Just waiting 1 minute, and we are starting. No. Okay. No. You talk. Ah. So we are going to wait for just 1 minute to the other panelists to join us. She's coming. No, she's coming. She's coming. Ah, water. Agua. Ahí viene, viene, viene. So hello everyone. Now we can start with this session on collaborative partnerships to favor the development of sustainable production systems in Latin America. My name is Mailen Salucio. I'm from APRESID, the Argentinian No-Till Farmers Association, and I will be moderating this session today. And joining me on stage, we have the honor to have the presence of Professor Ratam Lal, distinguished professor of the Ohio State University, ambassador of goodwill of ICA for Sustainable Development, and World Food Prize 2020. We have also Marcelo Torres, president of APRESID, the Argentine No-Till Farmers Association, Natasha Santos, who is head of Global Stakeholders Affairs and Strategic Partnerships of Bayer, and Corina Lechmann, Director of Environmental Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Argentina. So all countries face the same challenges related to maintaining soil health, protecting biodiversity, reducing emissions while increasing food security. But in Latin America, they began the transformation of the agricultural systems more than 3 decades ago through the adoption of different technological innovations and sustainable practices that have allowed to increase productivity, reduce the impact on the environment, and promote the conservation of natural resources and biodiversity. In this sense, this panel will address different projects and solutions that are being developed by farmers, as well as the strategic role played by the science, by agricultural companies, and the public sector also, to promote and enhance this model of agriculture that is capable of regenerating soils and mitigating climate change. So to begin with, I'm going to invite Marcelo to share with us the main features of these production systems mostly adopted in the region, and how farmers are working in real productive scenarios to increase carbon sequestration in soils.
Well, thank you so much, Mylene and Ika, for inviting us to bring the voice of farmers. Uh, APRESID has the presidency of CAPAS, our American Confederation of Agriculture Sustainable. In order that we are talking about a regional scope. I will start my presentation by introducing you to CAPAS, American Confederation of Sustainable Agriculture, as I said. We are a network on farmer associations throughout Latin America, which main purpose are to work in the promotion, development, intensification, and improvement on sustainable production system based on no-till at a national and international level, and to encourage the study and research of the soil care and impact on the environment. With a regional scope, today CAPAS is composed by the Sustainable Association Agriculture of Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, and Mexico. From CAPAS, we promote productive models based on these pillars. No-till, the basis of soil health, is the absence of tillage. Tillage is one of the main causes of the degradation of agriculture soils. Why? Because destroys their natural structure, the ecosystems where billions of organisms carried out key agroecosystem processes, nutrient cycling, storage and provision of water and air, carbon sequestration, among others. Currently, CAPAS and NICA have a strong alliance to continue scaling these models from America to the world and empower public-private interaction and a continental level. But no tillage is must necessary to be accompanied by other practice to add complexity to management but make agriculture system as similar as possible to natural ecosystem. These practice are no-till, living soils all year around. The interaction between soil organisms and plant must be continuous in order to enhance the biological activity of the soils and the process it regulates and to make the best use of the available resources. Diversification to crop sequences depending of each environment. Using serving crop as a strategic ally to improve productivity, guarantee stability and resiliency. This explains why it is important farmers to be involved in this process. It should be noted that no two systems are the same and each of these practices must be adapted to each region and each production system. The benefits of these production models are not a simple proclamation. In fact, in the QR links to all the studies that validate this information you have in this QR link. Sorry. To begin, they are key allies in preventing erosion, avoiding an estimated loss of 700 million tons of soil per year. It improves water productivity by 25%. This means more grain per millimeter of water. It reduces 60% the use of fossil fuels. It reduces the use of external inputs, such as phytosanitaries necessary to control pests, improves the biological activity of soils in their biodiversity. In order to climate change, the soil which are the largest terrestrial reservoir of organic carbon on the planet. The agriculture that is one of the only sectors that, in addition to emitting, can sequester CO2 from the atmosphere and be source of climate change mitigation. Why? Because it relies on two key allies: plant photosynthesis and soil. Through photosynthesis, plants transform CO2 from the atmosphere into soil organic carbon. In this context, the production models applied in South America have much to contribute. On one hand, because they maximize carbon sequestration and promoted permanent photosynthesis with evergreen sequences. On the other hand, they reduce emission due to the absence of tillage and less dependencies of synthetic inputs. And farmers involved closing gap between rhetoric to result is why this is important. The farmers are involved. South America. This productive model based on the pillars that are globally known as a conservation or regenerative agriculture nowadays. They are not only a reality in Argentina and the region, but also in South America, where 55% of the agriculture surface is worked under a soil regeneration and environmental care approach. Conservation or regenerative agriculture defined by goals telling us that conserving alone is not enough. We need to regenerate. South America is a very important supplier of food, fibers, and energy to the world, with a huge participation in fruit production and not very densely populated. We believe in the constant evolution of our productive models. However, these production models were not to build overnight, but thanks to the process of collaborative innovation that is worth highlight. More than 40 years ago, the first no-tillage experience began with a central objective to take care of the soil of developing areas. Faced with a scenario of soil degradation, group of producers called on local specialists and machinery manufacturers to develop seed drills capable of sowing without previous tillage, cutting thick layers of stubble, depositing the seed in the contact with the soil to cover again with crop residues. The use of crop stubble or living covers prevent water and wind erosion and the breakdown of soil aggregates. At a time when new challenge appeared, the thought as no tillage alone was not enough, and many of the pillars and practices that we discussed and promoted through organizations such as CAPAS were built. For example, we saw if instead of stubble we keep the soil covered with living covers, in addition to preventing erosion, they contribute to increased carbon sequestration with control, increased biological nitrogen fixation if legumes are used, regular water consumption, preventing flooding, erosion, and soil salinization, nourish an active and diverse microbiome, among other benefits. Consequently, they contribute to reduce the use of external inputs. We also discovered that we could go even further, depending on the environmental characteristics of each region determined by temperatures, rainfall, and ultimately the growing season. We came up with models like that we see here. We keep the fields green as long as possible, even sowing on living covers our harvest crops as we see in these images. Thus, this is the system evolved over time, and the innovation process was permanent and dynamic and continues to be so in order to be able to adapt to each new challenge that appears. Over time, we understood that this initial model on collaborative innovation in which farmers, specialists, and companies converge at a local level and help us to build more sustainable agriculture model could be applicable to find sustainable solutions to other problems and challenges. And we made this our working methodology. How does it work? In the first stage, farmers meet in a regional group throughout the region to exchange information and experience. These regional groups identify problems specific to each region, problems of salinization, water management, limitations, closing gaps. Some of them are working on initiatives to add value to their raw materials, others in the integration of livestock and agriculture through service crop. This lead to the experimentation of solutions where farmers work together with experts and technology companies in real productive scenarios to develop sustainable production model under no tillage. This search for solutions must be based on technology, on knowledge, based on science, but also on the experience of the farmers. This is the best guarantee that the solutions generated are sustainable from the point of view of being adapted to each reality and that producers feel them as their own. The role of farmers is also key to scaling up the solution generated. Farmers adapt innovation more quickly when they see other farmers working in the region with similar environmental and field. But solving today's challenge without considering future scenarios is not sustainable at all. We project future scenarios to guide our mind life of work. Finally, we believe that sustainability must not only be done, but must also be demonstrated to society. We also have a specific certification program for this purpose. I would like to share two strategic projects in this climate change summit that we have been working on and that were possible thanks to the dynamic of collaborative innovation. The first one is our carbon network. We talk about the potential of agricultural soils in CO2 sequestration under organic forms and climate change mitigation. But we start to ask ourselves, what is the CO2 storage capacity our productive soils today? What is the maximum they can store according to each environment? What practice we need to apply to maximize the soil organic carbon sequestration rate in each situation? These are the objectives of our appreciated carbon network. The country's agricultural soils are today 46% of their maximum soil organic carbon storage capacity. By massively implementing the above practice, we could increase soil organic carbon level by up 20%, which would compensate for more than half of the national emission linked to agriculture. The project shows us that although there is much room for improvement in each area, there are leading producers who are already implementing better sequestration practices and closer to closing this gap. One of the great challenges ahead is to adapt this practice to each reality. Another big next step, measuring carbon footprint. The second project is the Gran Chaco biome in the northern of Argentina and southern of Paraguay. This is a region in the eye of the storm in terms of deforestation, but little is said about it occurs in areas close to these biomes which are authorized for this activity. The project is the result of the interaction between appreciated farmers in the area, Prochungas, and Fundación Moisés Bertoni of Paraguay, financed by the Land Innovation Fund to ensure different angles in the process and result. Objective to support farmers in the adoption of good agricultural practice, promoting the conservation and restoration of native vegetation in agricultural landscape in the ecoregion. Main action: monitoring carbon stock, adaptation of productive practice aimed to sequestration in the region, involve farmers in the protection of these vulnerable natural landscapes that surround them, which are not only strategic for the humanity, but also allies to enhance production. The first step for this is the realization of forest inventory and biodiversity survey. In Brazil, this project no-tillage system as basis for sustainable agriculture is being developed by Brazil since 2020, financed by Euroclimate. This project will be developed in three phases. One, resilience of soil organic matter and ecosystem service under no-till system in Brazilian biomass. The objective is to capture the real potential that no-tillage systems have in recovering the, the carbon that was lost through land conversion, compared to conventional tillage. The second, adaptation of the participatory quality index to all regions and biomass. Next steps are coordinate action at the regional level and standardize and protocolize these indicators. Expected results are a database to help improve the management of no-tillage production system in agroecosystem, to generate carbon stock map of no-tillage areas at the national level, Brazilian level, by determining carbon stock up to 1 meter depth in various Brazilian biomass. Database to establish criteria for ecosystem service for farmers to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Develop a strategy to evaluate the recovery of carbon stock in agriculture areas. Comparison with native reference vegetation. Calibration of the participative quality index with carbon sequestration rate. Training of human resources, masters and doctoral students for further development of no-tillage system in Brazil. Database for the generation of a level for sustainable no-tillage agriculture. We need to coordinate action at the regional level and standardize again and protocolize these indicators. Well, we are working in CAPAS. We need to extend the scope on a regional area. Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay are working a lot with no-tillage, with carbon sequestration, carbon emission. We need to work together and protocolize the indicators and the information. It's not so easy, but we are working on that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Marcelo. Now we are going to invite Professor Ratan Lal to share with us his reflections on the agro-environmental sustainability of the agricultural soils of the Americas and the actions of the Living Soils of the Americas initiative, which links science, public policies, and the private sector to work on restoring soils in the hemisphere.
Thank you very much. I want to thank ICA for their kind invitation, but especially Dr. Francisco Mello, who has been without him, I couldn't go anywhere. Very simple. I really appreciate it. And although this is the last panel of the last day, it's really a great pleasure that some of you are still here. That's very nice indeed. I want to talk about the LAC region, Latin America Caribbean region, which is a world agriculture powerhouse. Since 1960, especially, the LAC region has transformed from net importer to exporter food, and the transformation is one of the most important developments in modern world history as it happened on such a large scale. And the output has quadrupled. I remember what happened in the 60s in South Asia. This is probably much more than that. and it is still growing at 3.5% per year. So that's very remarkable. But there are challenges, and I think we should not forget about those, and they need to be addressed. Some of the challenges: soil degradation. I was delighted to hear, I hope this news is correct, that soil health term is in the final declaration. If that has happened, it's really a unique, it has never happened before. Uh, Land word has been used in the language, but not soil health. So I think it's, and soil degradation, just the opposite of soil health. Greenhouse gas emission in relation to anthropogenic climate change, urban poverty, a necessity because urban population in Latin American region is the highest percent globally, although Asia may catch up later toward the end of this century. And we have small landholder farmers, about 50 million of them, which also need to be addressed. And I do want to mention small landholder farmers. Soil degradation, erosion 20%, especially in Central America. Desertification 17% of Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and Brazil's northeast. And salinization wherever, secondary salinization, especially where irrigation is an important factor. Greenhouse gas emission, especially in soybean, which has a very high production, and because of N2O emission, the CO2 equivalent, which is quite high because the global warming potential of N2O is 310 times that of carbon dioxide. And the rainforest region, which is converted to soybean, we can understand the carbon debt created by deforestation. And without land use, greenhouse gas intensity varies also tremendously, and especially in soybean cultivation, it needs to be taken care of in future management system. No-till system has the lowest CO2 intensity, but still because herbicides and pesticides have active ingredient of somewhere between 8 and 10 kilogram of carbon per kilogram of active ingredient, and herbicides and pesticides and fertilizer, nitrogen is about 2 kilogram of carbon per kilogram of nitrogen in fertilizer production. Carbon debt in biofuel is certainly, although sugarcane ethanol is very, very efficient compared to corn grain ethanol, but still there is quite a lot of carbon debt which we need to address from the long-term point of view. If biofuels are eventually going to become a very important factor as an alternative to fossil fuel, then the carbon debt in biofuel need to be addressed. Drought tolerance, as the soil degrades, the organic matter content decreases with cultivation, the water retention capacity of the soil decreases, and what we call green water supply, that the available water capacity, that leads to drought, and therefore water deficit does cause in semi-arid and arid region yield gap. And soybean yield, though, can be increased with deep-rooted varieties and many other options, but certainly soil water storage in the profile need to be addressed. Water should remain where it falls during the rainfall, and that is a very important criteria that we need to consider. Climate change is going to have a negative impact, certainly on productivity, on yield. Brazil being a largest producer, obviously change in temperature could have tremendous impact on productivity. We do not want to assess how much it can be. There are data available on that part, but I think adaptation of agro-ecosystem, especially soil health, is very important part in addressing the climate change issue. And soybean does represent a very high proportion of protein. Therefore, its yield increase in different climatic regions need to be considered in relation to climate change and how agriculture, including the soybean production, can be a solution. And that's a part which I hope will happen. about 10% of Brazil production of soybean is used for biodiesel, although quite a lot of ethanol comes from sugarcane. Sustainable food system, which was a very important topic of the UN program that ended in 2021. Transitioning to sustainable food system is also pertinent to advancing all the 17 SDGs of the UN. I must state that if you look at the primary language of all the 17 SDGs, none of them have word soil in it. So if this thing has happened today, it's really a remarkable success story. And when the UN Food System Declaration was being made 2 years ago, I revised the declaration at least 5 times and added the word soil health, but the final declaration did not have that word in it. So apparently, if it has happened, it's very important because you cannot achieve sustainable number 1 goal and poverty, number 2 goal zero hunger, number 3 goal good health, number 6 goal clean water, number 12 goal responsible consumption production, 13 climate action, life below water, 14 life land degradation neutrality and life on land, number 15, and finally peace and justice. I do not want to make any political statement, but war in Eastern Europe is on who captured the world's most fertile Chernozem soils. And that is the case in many other places as well. And unfortunately, we don't talk about it. There are not 2 parties in a war, and I won't mention any name, but there are 3 parties in a war. And the third name I will mention is the soil. Soil is the most jeopardized entity. It cannot recognize which tank is trampling it and which gun is cratering it and which ammunition is polluting it. And it will take several decades to restore the health of soils which are impacted by war. So when the war ends, and which hopefully is soon, soil healing is as important as healing of the human which are being affected, because their impact continues, especially heavy metal impact, especially land quality which being degraded, impact for generations to come. And that's a very serious consideration. Fighting over the land while destroying it is something it's very hard to understand. So sustainable agri-food system, 7 dimension. I think Lord mentioned today 3 dimension. I want to add 4 more to it. 7, environmental, social. I think you mentioned these 3, cultural, institutional, policy, and governance. And they are all important in food system, and they all impact soil, water, and air, which are very important. So the future food system must be achieving food and nutritional security for all while addressing the 7 pillars of sustainability, which I just outlined, and focusing on the urgency to implement the transition to sustainable food system, which also advance Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations Agenda 2030. Attributes of resilient systems are those which can withstand the shocks and bounce back, maintain soil ecosystem health, are pro-nature. That's a very important part. We have to be pro-nature. We are part of the nature, and support interconnectivity and holism and sustain soil health. So I'm really glad the last statement, soil health, is on the agenda. If it is, it's a miracle indeed. Nature positive agriculture, the goal is to protect, manage, and restore soil, strengthen biodiversity, improve water quality and renewability, adopt negative emission farming. Industry is planning to have 50% reduction, whether it's a machinery or tractor or Sony or car manufacturer. Agriculture is the only industry which has the capacity to be negative emission. If you invest 1 ton of carbon and you harvest 10 ton, that's a tremendous impact. So let's make sure that we have a slogan of negative emission technology, NET. I do not particularly like the word low carbon agriculture. In fact, if it is something, it should be low carbon emission agriculture or high carbon productivity agriculture. So the better term is that negative emission farming. Reduce input of chemicals, use biostimulants, promote biocircular economy, support One Health concept, which is very critical because human health depends on it. Health of soil, plants, animal, people, ecosystem, and the planet is one and indivisible. So if the word soil health is in the declaration, that's really something to be proud of. Use it on precision agriculture. And some of the examples are already mentioned: conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture, agroecology. Agroecology has 4 major laws. Number 1, everything is connected to everything else. That's Barry Commoner's book. Number 2 law, there is no way to throw away. You know, they say, let's throw it away. Throw away where? And number 3, Mother Nature knows no mercy. You make one mistake, your mother will forgive you. Mother Nature will never forgive you. Mother Nature is not. And the last one, which is most important, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Everything has a price. And the ecological price is much serious. And if you don't consider soil health, that is the price which we have to really address. Agroforestry, integration of crop with trees and livestock. The previous session was talking about dairy, and I wanted to mention this point that it is really not the stall-fed cattle kind of dairy we are talking about. We are talking about integration of crop with trees and livestock, which really is a solution. Practices which promote positive soil carbon budget, and as far as the fertilizer is concerned, it's C and PK. C comes before NPK. If the C content is high, the need for NPK becomes over time less and less, and maintain always a balanced nutrients. If nitrogen is subsidized, farmer would apply more nitrogen, not PK, and that's where we want to make sure drip fertigation. Yesterday we met somebody from Jain Irrigation. Drip fertigation is the future, and of course precision farming, artificial intelligence. If we can find a device which can be put on some kind of drones or on low-flying equipment to monitor soil carbon stock, that would be excellent. Negative emission agriculture, reducing carbon from farm operation and sequestering carbon. And that's why the net part is very critical, and sequestering in soil, trees, wetlands, vineland, degraded lands, and all those aspects. We must save land for nature. That's the idea of agriculture. We have 5 billion hectares under agriculture. And I realize that some land can only be used for livestock production, which is great, but still we have 1.5 billion under cropland and 3.7 billion hectare under grazing land. That's 5 billion hectare. If we manage land properly, if we eat food properly, if we have input of science-based agricultural practices, we should be able to return, and I have a timetable, if anybody wants to pay attention to it, how much land should be returned by 2040, 2050, 2080, 2100. By 2100, it should be half of land area now under agriculture. Imagine if 2.5 billion hectare goes back to nature, how much carbon can be sequestered in it. And that's the solution that we, so the idea is produce more from less. So returning land to nature through carbon sequestration, improve biodiversity, conserve water, and all those good things can happen, including incidents such as COVID, which is increases the buffer between human and wildlife, and those are the way that we must proceed. Toward transformation, restore soil, physical environment, prove social equity, adopt prudent governance, identify and implement site-specific solutions, strengthen human resource development, and create multi-stakeholder partnership. Obviously, appreciate being involved here is a very important part. Multi-stakeholder partnership could address ecology, it could address human dimensions, it could address action to be taken in soil restoration, other part. It could also transform policies, and that is essentially what sustainable production is. And private sector and other organization can play important role in translating science into action. I do want to mention very briefly, I had the honor, privilege, and a very unique opportunity for me to serve in Africa for 20 years. And Africa certainly has soil, climate, water, human resource, people skill to become the next Sarado miracle. There is no reason why it shouldn't be, as long as the policy, the political willpower to achieve productivity is there. And I hope it will happen soon in terms of translating science into action. So in addition to research, we must really consider smallholder farmers, and we have 500 million smallholder farmers compared to about 100 million larger farms. So we must promote a multi-stakeholder. Private sector, obviously, very important component of translating science into action by promoting nature positive agriculture, by increasing access to inputs and improving investment in agriculture research and development. Carbon farming, which means growing carbon as a commodity, like you grow corn and soybean or dairy and create another income stream for it. So you can get paid if you increase carbon in the land. And for that purpose, we need to find out essentially how much to pay farmers because South America has a very tremendous large sink capacity of carbon sequestration. If you look at degraded soils of Africa, South Asia, Indian region, many other parts where the soil degradation affects 1/3 of the entire ice-free land area, the technical potential of carbon sequestration is very high, but that means the financial part to reward farmer to harness that sink capacity is also very large. And my suggestion for that is pay farmer $150 to $200 per ton of carbon. That's roughly come to $50 per credit. I know there are many organizations which are paying now $15, $12, $10, and so forth. The real price, what farmer have to invest in humification or organic matter residue is about $50 per ton at current prices. And underpaying such a precious resource is not a very good idea. Our mantra for this part is that we should do agriculture policies in such a way that no farmer is left behind. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Professor. It's a privilege to have you here, and thank you, Francisco, that made it possible. Now, taking into account the need to generate collaborative approaches, I would like to ask Natasha, how are agricultural companies supporting their partners in these shared goals, and what initiatives are being developed to support farmers towards these more sustainable production systems?
Thank you. No, I thought the microphone was off, and he was. I'm not paying attention to these techniques. Look, let me just start with two things. First of all, it's an honor to go after Dr. Ratan Lal. Your modesty, your brightness, and your drive, it's just so inspirational for all of us. I just had a young niece. She was born. She lives in Chicago with my brother. She's 2 years old. I look at her and said, what is the world that I want to, leave to her? And you were leaving a better world for all of us. We saw your work, so thank you so much. Then second is great. The last panel of COP, my COP is about Latin America. I'm Brazilian, passionate, love, live in Germany, but this is the continent that I love. And about Argentina, I'm gonna talk more about Argentina, which we are families, right? We are cousins. So, and you're better than us in football nowadays, but it is what it is, right? We support. Look, one thing that we are really, really proud of, and just to reinforce, I think we are among friends here. Bayer is very committed to the regenerative agriculture conversation, but as Dr. Ratan mentioned, transforming ideas into actions and really partnering, first of all, with the farmers, right, which are our customers, who we need to deliver value or I don't have a business, and then with partners like APRASEED in Argentina, with the University of Buenos Aires. We work with several universities. We are partners as well of Dr. Ratan to really accelerate the science, together with the scientists, but to really accelerate solutions that we can bring to the farmers to bring that value that we need to unlock, and we need to unlock big. The finance sector just announced it, 100 billion, they're gonna do 100 billion, that's trillions of dollars, so how we can unlock that value and bring to the farmers. And I think Latin America is not, it's one of the most amazing continents for us to do that. And I just wanted to share one partnership and you know, answering your question, and investment that we have been doing there with important customer of ours, farmers in Argentina, the Agrícola Tesla, near Pergamino, and we have been working with them for 3 years now. The idea was, well, this is a model farm, let's have best practices, let's invest on practice that will contribute to the regenerative agriculture outcomes. And we expected, but it got even better than we thought. They have extended even the practices, the sustainable practices into another 1,000 hectares. So I think, who knows, the farmers, they plant soy, corn, and wheat in 1,130 hectares. And it is our model farms, and we have partnered with them and all the APRASEED and University of Buenos Aires, as I mentioned, IRAM as well, to intensify those regenerative agriculture practices. So we all know about crop rotation, it's cover crops, but as well winter crops, no-till, all the practices that we know, but to do that with the best technology available, not only ours is the best, but not only ours, everything that will provide the solutions to the farmers. So the best germplasm, digital as well to monitor pests, but as well to really accelerate the precision application, so to, for example, lower sprays. And then from the results from 2019 to 2022 that made the farmer invest even further is that not only we had, and I have the numbers here on the some of the regenerative agriculture outcomes, but as well their profitability, which is really, really important for us to scale that. So from a farmer ROI, we were happy to see that their productivity increased 13%, but more important, their gross margin per hectare increased 20%. So there was an economic case based on best practices. And then from a regenerative agriculture point of view, we had an improve, like really great numbers, improve of 65% of carbon balance, improve of 40% of the system biomass production, which is relevant in the context as well of soil health. We had a reduction of 15% of sprays, and we had a surplus in terms of carbon sequestration of 1,512 kilograms per hectare. So that's potential value that we want to make it transparent, that we want to have third-party validation and potentially unlock that value to the farmer. So this was the first round with an important customer of ours, but we want to do this at scale. So we are trying to attract more partners. Argentina, Brazil are definitely priority for us, and that's what makes me very excited. For me, it's easy. I come here to COP, and we all have big ambitions, but we have so much to tell and to say because we're already doing things in our countries, right? It's happening. We just need to accelerate, get the right partners, and scale and bring the value to farmers. So thank you for inviting us.
So we are getting at the last days at COP28, and taking into account also the different speeds on what is happening at the decision-making level, and in this case, the international negotiations, and what is happening on the ground where actors are taking action. I would like to ask Corina about the possibilities to consider this model of agriculture as a recognized solution for international actors who often define the roadmap for climate negotiations. And also taking into advance your presence here, I would like to ask your thoughts about this COP in particular.
Uh, Thank you. Good evening. I think it's good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank APRESID and, of course, ICA for the invitation of this side event, and also, of course, congratulate and thanks the government of the United Emirates, Arab Emirates, and recognize this effort in organizing this COP, such a important event for the world. Uh, well, I took some notes and regarding these days and the important negotiations, and of course, in relation with also what Argentina lives in this moment. But let me start first with the second question and the first question too. The fact that we started the COP adopting the historic decision on the operationalization of the loss and damage fund was a major step for developing countries such as Argentina, and of course the whole global south, who worked so tirelessly on this matter, not only in this COP but in previous COPs and intersessional work. Where we are very happy. We are very proud too for the commitments that have already been announced, and we hope that more commitments and pledges and funds will be forthcoming as the developing world is already dealing with unprecedented losses and damages caused by the adverse effects of climate change. This is particularly important in our national context with the latest draft well, there are a lot of around the world draft, but in our country and the region too, that have hit Argentina, and as well as our negotiator partners within Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay group, and also other regions. This is directly linked to the topic that we are discussing in agricultural groups, and agriculture is one of the most affected sectors by the negative impact of climate change. We also have high hopes that we will be able to adopt a global framework on the global adaptation for evaluating progress and enhancing adaptation actions, another priority for developing countries, since adaptation needs to be prioritized. Again, this is related directly with the agriculture sector that we deem as part of the solution. We are almost at the end of the conference, but there are still a lot of pending issues to be resolved. In relation with the first question, Argentina has been a pioneer in direct seeding, and we are aware that it gives a lot of opportunities. Non-till is not only beneficial for the environment, but also gives major economical benefits. Many times we see negative voices on agriculture that wants to point it as a scapegoat of climate change. As we have repeatedly stated, agriculture is part of the solution and not the problem to climate change through sustainable practices such as no-tilling, and to achieve the sustainability and sustainable development by the pivotal role in the elimination of hunger. There are plenty of possibilities for scaling of the direct seeding agriculture. First and foremost, our governments can be the key proponents of our priorities and approaches of the international level in different relevant processes, forums and international organizations as the UNFCCC, but also mainly FAO and WTO. We must continue bringing our voices to all of these fora, and in order to make the opportunities and benefits of direct seeding well known, as well as the scientific proof of its sustainability. Also, the important role allocated in this fora for constituencies, international organizations, civil society, and stakeholders must be exploited so that we can express our voices, share experiences, and have constructive dialogues that lead to peer-to-peer learning and networking. For example, Argentina and the ABU group, that is Brazil, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay, in the negotiations regarding the Sharm el-Sheikh joint work for agriculture and food security under the UNFCCC, has been discussing with other parties the possibility of having interactive dialogues and approaches, challenges and means of implementation for climate action in agriculture. Unfortunately, negotiations during this COP has been focused on another issues and couldn't advance, but our priority is always how to unlock further means of implementation so that the agriculture sector can get the support it needs in the context of increasing climate change. Finally, in regard to the future and the situation that we are raising Argentina now with a new government, as you know, yesterday the new government took office. In this regard, I would like to highlight the presence here of the current ambassador to Senegal, that is Ambassador Marcel Ebachi. She is a diplomat, and she will be the future Undersecretary of Foreign Policy, who since yesterday has been participating as head of delegation of Argentina. Her presence here is mainly aimed and conveying the message of the new government that Argentina is committed to climate action and will continue to comply with international environmental agreements. From the Foreign Office, from the Foreign Ministry, and in particular from the Directorate of Environmental Affairs that I lead, we will continue, as always, articulating with the competent national agencies to carry a consolidated national position in the negotiations of the International Environmental Forum, like this one and others on biodiversity, chemicals, water, among others. This role as articulator and coordinator is extended to the private sector and civil society, because we must not forget that sustainable development implies taking into account the three dimensions: environmental, economic, and social, and I would like to add the other components that are also extremely important too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Corina, for sharing with us the Argentinian position on these important issues. So we appreciate that. So I would like to open to some questions or comments from the public.
Well, I'm Francisco Melo. I'm from AICA. I do attend as head of knowledge management at Horizontal Corporation. I also participated in the Living Soils of the Americas initiative. I just want to make like a short comment. I hope that comes short because it's the end of the day. And first of all, I want to congratulate all of you on the great work you are doing in different spheres. It's been actually fantastic hearing and seeing much action in this past couple of weeks. This is really, really important. I really want to thank you, Bayer, for supporting the Living Soils of the Americas initiative, as well Presidio, who is a great partner of ours. and Ratan Lau, who is been co-leading the initiative. It's been a huge pleasure working with you in all these past days, Professor. The honor is mine. I just want to say that due to the initiative, we were able to find out in a recent study that our region, we were investigating like thousands of papers. We began with like 10, 12,000 papers, and we came out with the most important, let's say, 20 ones that are showing to us clear evidences that at least three great practices that we have here consolidated in the region, pastoral reclamation, no tillage, integration of crop, livestock, are able to mitigate up to 14 petagrams of CO2 equivalent in 20 years in 30% of land area. So this is a really important outcome because that corresponds to 40% of emissions. So it's a huge start to get the net zero, get into a carbon positive agriculture. And I'm really proud in getting those numbers, and I couldn't do without all you guys. So another issue I just want to raise is that everything that we have been doing is connected. So Procarbono, for example, from Bayer, is helping us also to find out specific information in crops or management practices that we have not finding any info at all. So we have been doing some really, really interesting measurements in Argentina, Chile, Belize, and so on. And I want also to add that CAPAS has a huge role as well in helping us to spread the adoption of such practices across the Americas. So connected, we can do actually much more, and I just wanted to once again thank you very much on everything that you're doing, and I hope you can keep supporting us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And to sum up, I would like to ask the panelists if they would like to share some final words or remarks about the general topic of the session, and what is still missing. No? What is how do we enhance the collaboration between the main stakeholders? So,
Well, I remarked that all these countries are working in carbon sequestration, carbon emission, carbon balance, but we need to work together and protocolize this information among Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina in the first step. We need to deliver a strong message to these scenarios in order to we have a lot of responsibility in order to being actor to improve and to help to to reach a more sustainable way to do agriculture. You know, the human being are the possibility to made a huge change because we could build a strong and complex networking because we have an important tool. This is the language. By the language, we could conform a strong and complex society to reach some objectives, complex objectives, performing a complex surgery, flying to one country to another. In issues that climate change, I believe it seems that we need to create a new common language to understand each other because there are a new challenge. It's not easy to interchange in. We need to create a new language to help us to resolve these problems. We need to work together, and the first step is build a strong relationship between these countries in these issues.
thank you, Marcelo.
I'll be brief. No, I think we see a lot of challenges, but at the same time, right, we have so much learnings and we are doing so much. So for me, I think we talk about it. I know this house does this a lot, but we should bring, the farmers, the agricola testa here to tell their story, what they are delivering and the economic benefits. And what we need to do is to unlock the value, the real value of those ecosystem service. And I think we need to get the finance and some other sectors closer, and just show them with the data that we consolidate, with being transparent, and then let's unlock that value. And I like Corina mentioned, we need to and some of us private sector are maybe a little bit frustrated that we still didn't move on the agriculture negotiation, because agriculture is part of the solution, and if we don't unlock that and we don't support, it's gonna be slow, and it will, the Latin America will make it, but there are other parts of the world that we need to accelerate, such as Africa, and we need to make it now. So, but let's not lose the energy. Let's keep fighting, and let's get more collaboration to deliver on our goals, because the world needs, right? My niece needs, and all of us need. So thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Well, Professor Lal, would you like to add some final remarks?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, indeed. I just want to mention, I fully support what Francisco said, but want to mention again, people are mirror image of the soil they live on. And that's a fact. You drive through whatever country you like, you don't need to get out, you see the people, you know what their soil is like. And therefore, if we want to be concerned with welfare of human being, soil health is very critical. And one reason the Green Revolution bypassed sub-Saharan Africa is because soil health was ignored. And we cannot keep ignoring it. Let me give an example why I think it's ignored. Global fertilizer use per hectare average is 140 kilogram per hectare. Average continental fertilizer use in Africa is 17 kilogram per hectare, maybe 20 sometime. Irrigation use, which is sub-Saharan Africa's semi-arid and arid region and others, including Southern Africa part, the lower part of the desert and highlands, eastern highland, water scarcity. And water scarcity going to become more serious. The drought and flood problem that you notice is a part of the problem of soil health, not being able to absorb water and retain water. Unfortunately, irrigation, which brought about the Green Revolution in South Asia and China, having as much as 40% of their cropland. In Africa, at present, it is 6%. So unless we bring about radical change, and this is where I think Bayer and other private sector have to play a very important role, because the government are too weak to bring in the investment needed. So the transformation that several regions we have a serious problem of agriculture not taking up, private sector probably have to play a much bigger role. And once they bring in the things, hopefully policymakers will also follow up. So I have very high hope that translating science interaction, especially the composition of the panel here, will happen, because they are very interested in bringing about transformation in agriculture. Thank you.
Well, I think we get to the end of this session. For me, it was an honor to moderate this panel. And I would like to thank ICA also for all the support, and for giving us the possibility to share our experiences, opinions, and to bring these distinguished panelists. And well, this is the final session also of the pavilion, so thank you all for being here.